A good Erev Shabbos. Baruch Hashem. Approaching Parshas Beha'aloscha, a very, 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 very powerful parsha. I want to jump straight into it. In the end of this week's parsha, there is a tragic episode. A tragic episode. Very scary. In fact, in a certain way, one of our most beloved, if you call them characters of the Torah, dies. Someone dies in the Torah. One of the most beloved characters in the Torah dies. And she dies for something that Nebuch, too many people do all the time. All the time. In fact, the Rabbi Zakheim wrote a sefer discussing this specific episode in the Torah, and he takes every single word that discusses the Avera that caused her death, and he breaks it down for us to understand this horrible, terrible mitzvah to stay away from. In fact, of Avera to stay away from. In fact, of all the Averas in the Torah, this is one of the Averas that are emphasized, that it's like a nuclear bomb. It's not only like a nuclear bomb, it's a totally random nuclear bomb. Totally random nuclear bomb. In that you don't even know where the bomb is going to explode. If you ever read about the horrific bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, right? Hiroshima, 80,000 people killed in an instant. Nagasaki, I think 30,000 people killed in an instant. And that's aside from what's known as the firebombing of Tokyo, where 100,000 people were killed. This type of stuff. This Avera is a nuclear bomb. It's a straight up in Zayar. It's a nuclear bomb that kills huge amounts of people and in totally random places you don't know what's going to happen. Nobody, chas v'shalom, would do that. Imagine you had a button, you press this button, it says don't press, and you press it, and it says, and boom, it'll explode a nuclear bomb somewhere in the planet. Chas v'shalom, you'd never do that. You have no idea where it could end up. Okay, listen, if it was, in certain places, okay, press it quick. But if it's random, you have no idea. It might be right here, it might be right down the block, it might be 1,000 miles away, it might be 10,000 miles. You have no idea. And it caused the death of the person who did it. Who is this person who did the Avera? We're talking, of course, about Miriam. Miriam Hanaviyah, the sister of Moshe Rabbeinu. Miriam Hanaviyah does a terrible Avera, so to speak, and she dies. Now I'm exaggerating. Am I exaggerating? I'm not exaggerating. She dies. How does she die? So she becomes a Mitzayah. She gets Tzuras. And that is one of the forms of death that are written in Chazal. Being poor, not having children. A Mitzayah. A person with Tzuras is considered dead. And Miriam Hanaviyah, what Avera did she do? What Avera did she do? Do you know? Lashon Hara. There you go. The Avera of Lashon Hara. She spoke inappropriately about someone who she respected greatly. She didn't intend to say something not nice about him. She loved him. She took care of him. She raised him as a child. But even so, with every single excuse to say there was nothing wrong with her doing this, still Lashon Hara. It's still Lashon Hara. And by doing so, we don't know the terrible effects. I'll tell you one terrible effect that happened. Perhaps, Aaron Milstein will tell me if I'm right or I'm wrong. In the coming week's parsha, in Parshas Shlach, which Eretz Yisrael is already learning Parshas Shlach, but in Parshas Shlach, we learned something very, very powerful. The beginning of Parshas Shlach talks about the Meraglim, the spies. Listen to this. You want to hear a good chap? You want to hear great Geshmak chap? We talk about the spies. And what happens to the spies? We know that the spies in the time will say Lashon Hara on what? On Eretz Yisrael. They go and they say terrible things about Eretz Yisrael. So Rashi, in the first Rashi in Parshas Shlach, in next week's Parsha, Rashi says, Loma Nisimcha Parshas Meraglim, Parshas Miriam. Why is the story about the spies placed directly next to the story about Miriam and her Lashon Hara? Lefisha Loksal Iskediba. Miriam was harmed. She was punished because of what she had spoken about. She spoke about her brother. And these Rishayim, they saw Chaim and they didn't transform themselves. They didn't restrain themselves. And you know what ended up happening with the Meraglim? What ended up happening? The Jewish people not allowed to go into Eretz Yisrael. The destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. All from this. All from the Meraglim. Now I ask a question. Listen to this. If the Meraglim had not had the episode of Miriam to learn from, if they had not been able to see what happened to Miriam, do you think they would have gotten in such trouble for not learning from the episode of Miriam? Meaning, if the story of Miriam had never happened, then what would happen? The Meraglim could not be blamed too much for saying bad things about Eretz Yisrael. They wouldn't have been saying bad things. Says Rashi, the reason why it's so sad, so bad what the Meraglim did is because of what Miriam did. And they should have learned about what happened to Miriam. But if Miriam had never done it, then what, Meir? If Miriam had never done it, then what? Then they wouldn't have been warned. They wouldn't have been such a terrible thing. We wouldn't have been not brought into Eretz Yisrael. The Beis HaMikdash wouldn't have been destroyed. You hear this? It all comes from the lesson, that which is Miriam's mistake. Miriam's Lashon Hara. I mean, you think about it. Perhaps this is a great source for learning the halacha that if a person speaks Lashon Hara, it causes the death of millions. Who were the death of millions? It wasn't today, it wasn't tomorrow. It was 852 years in the future, 850 years in the future. That was the death. So not only perhaps is it that it's a nuclear bomb any place in the world, it's a nuclear bomb. You don't even know when it's going to go off. It's a ticking time bomb. To speak Lashon Hara. To speak Lashon Hara. The Chofetz Chaim says that a Sefer Chofetz Chaim, which Rabbi Edelman and his class learn through every single year, no? Rabbi Edelman and his class. The Chofetz Chaim writes in the Sefer Chofetz Chaim, very similar to Rabbi Yonatan Eibeshitz writes about Shabbos, that a person cannot possibly know these halachas and know how to live a good and proper life, staying away from Lashon Hara, unless you learned the Sefer. You cannot learn, you cannot avoid Lashon Hara unless you learn the halachas. You cannot say, I'm going to be a good guy, and therefore I won't speak Lashon Hara. If you don't learn it inside, you've got nothing going for you. You've got no chance of avoiding Lashon Hara. And that means that every single day, you are at risk, Aaron, of pressing that button again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and again. And if you're wondering why people have difficult social lives, and if you're wondering why tsaras happen to Jewish people, you should just know, the Chofetz Chaim himself said that in his own town, when houses were burnt down, and people were dying, and people lost so much, the Chofetz Chaim himself said, you know why this happened? It's because you're not careful about speaking Lashon Hara. This is the great challenge of our time. Being careful about what you say. Right? There's a Gemara. The Gemara says that when you speak Lashon Hara, what benefit do you get out of this anyway? What benefit are you going to get? That you couldn't have avoided talking about somebody? My mother, Zal Gazinstein, she was quoting from somebody, I think she's quoting from my sister. But a line, somebody's about to say Lashon Hara. Just say three things. Just say three things. I don't know, I don't care, and I don't want to know. Just say that. I don't know, I don't care, and I don't want to know. It's better that way. It's better that way. Just don't tell me. But that's still not going to be enough. If you want to know what you are supposed to say, and a lot of times this week I got 2 calls about shidduchim of Talmidim. You're getting a call. You have to know what you're supposed to say. And if you don't know what you're supposed to say, then you're going to end up, chas v'shalom, once again pressing that button. Or chas v'shalom, ruining a marriage because you haven't told them what was necessary. Baruch Hashem, the person who called me, one of the conversations, the guy was a big Talmid Chacham. So he calls me up and he asks question, and Baruch Hashem, one of the questions he asks, about does he take any medications? But if you don't know how you're supposed to answer that question because you never learned who actually gets in the details of the halachas of shidduchim and what you could talk about, so what are you going to do? You're not going to say something and then cause the couple to get divorced? You are going to say something and then cause it never to get married? You have no idea what you're supposed to do. There is no sheva al tasa here. There's no sit and don't do anything and it'll be safe, because in the end of the day, chas v'shalom, you're going to be ruining somebody's life. A person needs to learn the Sefer Chofetz Chaim. A person needs to learn the halachas Lashon Hara. There's a wonderful fellow who lives in Lakewood. His name is Rabbi Yecheskel Menashe. I think that's his name. Yecheskel, you know what I'm talking about? Rabbi Menashe. He's a very interesting fellow. He is a Rebbe of first grade or kindergarten, and he is very, very, I think pre-1A or first grade. but he's very into learning the halachas of Shmiras Halashon. He's very into a specific sefer. It's called Daily Companion. Great, great book. Very clear, very practical. You don't get lost in the weeds. It's very good. You get it in paperback. It costs like $6. And you can get it. It's very clear. But he's very, very into this sefer. In this book, when he recommends people to read it, he then advises, he tells you hundreds and hundreds of miraculous stories about people who have learned Daily Companion. Yeah, a husband and wife, they're going to learn it together, and their child who was, I don't know, whatever age, and didn't have children yet, they had children, or shidduchim, or people couldn't get into yeshiva, or they weren't working well with friends, or they couldn't get a job. The man has his first-hand account, second-hand accounts. He heard it from the person it happened to. Hundreds and hundreds. I think he's up to 850 or something. People just come over to him and tell more stories based on that transformation, which has happened because they learned the halachas of Shmiras Halashon. Somebody died in the sixth parasha. Someone died. Miriam died in the sixth parasha. Think about Miriam, what she did for Moshe Rabbeinu, what she did for the Jewish people. She saved all the Jewish people. She's the one who convinced her parents to get back together. If their parents had not gotten back together, there'd be no Moshe Rabbeinu. When she was a little girl, she's the one who got them back together. And her father was very suspicious about whether it was the right thing to do. But she got them back together. She created the Jewish people. And after all that, Lashon Hara killed her. Tzaras. Obviously, she's still alive. And obviously, there was an opportunity for tshuva. But Baruch Hashem, but she was punished in that way. I want to say something just very quickly. 2 quick points about Lashon Hara, and then I'll conclude. When a person lacks respect for another human being, you can learn all the halachas of Shmiras Halashon in the world. But if you lack respect for another human being, then it's going to be very, very difficult to avoid saying nasty things about them. When you talk about your friends, if you don't have proper respect for your friends, then what's going to stop you from saying nasty thing about them, either to their face or to somebody else, and you speak about it, never. And you think you're being funny about it. It's not funny when you press that button. Chas v'shalom. A person needs to have respect. So a lot of the halachas of Shmiras Halashon are based in your appreciation for a fellow person. But I want to just add a second point, because this is not just Lashon Hara about another person. This is a Lashon Hara about one of the Gedolei Yisrael. That's what we're talking about here. The Gadol Yisrael, obviously Moshe Rabbeinu. This week there was an event this past Sunday. And I don't go to any events during the school year, even a chasana. I almost don't go to any chasanas except for chasanas of talmidim and of either my nieces or nephews. But aside from that, I don't go to any simchas, bar mitzvahs, chasanas, dinners. I don't go to anything. This past Sunday, I wonder if I should have gone. There was a tremendous gathering. It's known as the Adir HaTorah event. Adir HaTorah event. Baruch Hashem, my son went, but that's not me. Adir HaTorah event, we're talking about tens of thousands of people get together in 2 different stadiums, and they were celebrating Torah, those who learned Torah, and of course, as well, those who learned the Shteiger and the Gedolei HaTorah were all there. People came from everywhere. Someone I'm very close with, Rabbi Ephraim Shapiro, down in Florida. He lives in North Miami Beach. He flew up with his family to go to Philadelphia to be able to go to the arena there and be there for one night and then go back down to Florida. Think about that. What that means is he went there to appreciate Torah, those who learn Torah, the Gedolei Torah. If a person so quickly doesn't have an appreciation for our fellow Yid, for those who learn Torah, for the Gedolei Torah, then of course it's so easy to say something not great about them, to say something nasty. A person walks down the street and they see someone who looks different than them. Right? They say something. You're going to say something nasty. But when it comes to seeing someone that looks different than you, and he happens to be coming straight out of a beis medrash, or coming out of a yeshiva, or coming out of a kollel, you should know there's a greater expectation upon you to honor such people. If a person is coming out of shul, let's say you see somebody coming out of night seder in this yeshiva, Baruch Hashem, a lot of people have been going to night seder lately. Is that true? A lot of people have been going to night seder lately. You go to night seder. A guy's coming out of night seder. We're talking about one of the Adir HaTorah. This is the glory of the Jewish people, the glorious leaders of the Jewish people who are coming out of a beis medrash at night. You have to be very careful about speaking about such a person. Because like the pasuk over here says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu got very, very angry. Do you know who you're talking about, HaKadosh Baruch Hu says? You're not talking about anybody. You're talking about one of my people. You're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu. And when a person comes out of his medrash, we're talking about Moshe Rabbeinu, you got to be very, very careful. It starts with a great amount of respect. It's just a thought that I had, just a quick thought. I give us all the bracha. That just like we know that there's a midah when something bad happens, a nuclear bomb over here, and the chas v'shalom can destroy anywhere in the world, a person who is shemer pivelu sheinei, a person who is careful about what he does say, you should just know there's the reverse button as well. You can press that button and you are healing a great amount of people. Like we said, if you learn Daily Companion, why not? Start right now. Go home, go to our library, go to a bookstore, go to a farm store, order it online, listen to a shiur. Well, we have like 180 shiurim of we have it, no? Of all Daily Companion recorded. Yeah, we have the entire Daily Companion as a podcast. You can listen to every single one to be able to learn from it. And by doing so, you'll bring bracha to yourself. You'll bring bracha to your family mayor. And if you're working on something, you want something to happen, like specifically on Monday, you'll learn Daily Companion. It'll happen. Be'ez Hashem, we'll have brachas, v'atzlachas. Everyone should have a beautiful Shabbos, Be'ez Hashem.